Welcome to the Donovan Live postgame show right here on WKYC's Facebook Live with Jimmy Donovan himself. I'm Dave DiNatale as we get ready tonight. Big night over at the Quicken Loans Arena. Cavs and Warriors in the Cleveland rematch of the last. I'm amazed. The last Steve Kerr was talking about today. I mean, these two teams now 3 straight years in the finals. It's like the Celtics and the Lakers.
Yeah, it is.
And they're ready to play again tonight.
They are going, at least right now, in different directions.
Yeah, definitely. I was about to say. I mean, LeBron said, "Hey, look, Golden State's ready for the playoffs right now.
Right.
The Cavs are nowhere near ready for the playoffs."
Right. And I still attribute that to the Isaiah Thomas factor. I mean, that's a big addition, but it's a big adjustment.
Right.
I mean, he's a different kind of player. He's a different kind of player than Kyrie Irving was. He's a different kind of player than Dwayne Wade is,
right,
or any of the other guys that they play out at the top. And you're really going to have to learn how to play with him, and
right,
he's going to have to learn how to play with them. And so far, that has been an adjustment, and I think that's what it's going to be. So, I mean, I think it would be great for the Cavs just because of the way it's been going to win tonight.
Yes.
But if it doesn't happen, I think both of these teams know what it takes now to hit the mark in the regular season. The main thing is to be healthy by the time the playoffs begin. And then that's a season unto itself. And then just hit, as we talked about last year a lot, as the Cavs approached the playoffs and were kind of sputtering at that time, the Cavs have a button, I think, that they know they can hit. And you want to hit it at the right time.
And that was tough, I think. And I know I fell victim a little bit to it last week. And Dave Chudowski had to kind of try to talk me off the ledge a little bit because the Cavs do have a button. And LeBron sometimes is that button pusher. And it's tough to watch them give up 125 points a game on 3 straight games, losing 2 of them. They lost 3 in a row. Yeah. Blow a 22-point lead to the Pacers. It's just hard for fans who are watching Golden State do what they do night in and night out and watch other successful teams have little or no issues in the regular season and then watch the Cavs just sputter like this.
Right. And Dave brought you
he tried to.
Well, Dave is like a scene in the famous film Searching for Bobby Fischer. When it gets down to the finals and the young phenom is in against his other young phenom arch rival who had defeated him before, when the guy keeps saying, don't move until you see it.
That's right.
Don't move until you see it. And I think that's, if we can pass along that lesson tonight, I think that's important. Don't move until you see it. And I think that's what the Cavs have got to really find out.
Kind of like channel your inner Ben Kingsley. I think
There you go. I was searching for the name. Thanks for coming up. I thought that was an incredible scene in an incredible movie.
Yes.
Don't move until you see it.
Very underrated movie with Joe
and the kid goes,
and Joan Allen.
I don't see it. Don't move until you see it. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
So that's going to be at the Q tonight.
The movie or the Warriors are there?
The Warriors are actually there. You will not.
I thought maybe they would play the movie at halftime.
Yeah. You will not see Bobby Fischer, nor will you see Ben Kingsley there tonight. Have you ever see Dave Chudowski?
Have you ever seen the documentary that ESPN did about
Bobby Fischer?
Or was it HBO?
Somebody did HBO.
Where they actually found Bobby
yes.
Fischer, and he ended up in Iceland.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the scene in it where he had the press conference, and Dick Schaap was a tremendous writer and became a great broadcaster, and his son is Jeremy Schaap.
Yeah.
And Bobby Fischer goes after Jeremy Schaap about his dad. It was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
But it just told you how, really, just how off Bobby Fischer was.
Right. He would
Where
walk
we're
away.
going with all of this,
I have no idea.
But
He would walk away. He and Boris Spassky playing,
I remember
monumental chess matches,
when
and Bobby Fischer just walked away. He's
and
like,
I remember when they televised that. When that big match was going on, they televised. But they just televised the board. They just showed the chessboard and then the moves that would be made, and it was really something.
Wow.
And that I compared tonight's Warriors-Cavs game to Bobby Fischer and the famous Boris Spassky matches.
Okay.
All right.
So as you keep an eye on that as you're watching the game tonight.
And please don't move until you see it.
That's right. Ben Axelrod's going to be down there. Dave Chudowski's going to be down there. So we'll have full coverage during the game at WKYC.com and then afterwards tonight on Channel 3 News at 11. So that's going on tonight. I thought you and Chris Tide did a great job after 77 seconds at 7 talking about Keith Jackson, the life of the great sportscaster Keith Jackson, who passed away over the weekend. And, if you think about individual sports, you say, boy, that announcer, that broadcaster is synonymous with a sport.
Yeah.
When you can't think about a sport and not think about X. I don't know if any more can be said about college football without the name Keith Jackson. Just an amazing legacy.
Amazing talent. I mean, really an amazing talent. Just a phenomenal. I mean, I just had such joy in listening to him. And I still am a big Notre Dame fan.
Yes.
So when Lou Holtz came to Notre Dame to save the program, okay, and he immediately restored them to big game-itis and national prominence, and they played those big games at Michigan, and it was when the Rocket Ishmael, but they would come on, and they would describe it as a game of the century, number 1 versus number 2, Michigan and Notre Dame, and it was at Ann Arbor one day, and he just had a great way of describing it, and they would play the open, and he would this college football from the big house in Ann Arbor. And I remember when he said, number 1, the Michigan Wolverines, and you can pass the word, the Irish have arrived. And Notre Dame comes out of the tunnel in those gold helmets. Yeah. And I tell you what, I had goosebumps.
Right, you're fired up.
Because he just had a way of, and that was the day where Rocket Ishmael hit 2 returns for touchdowns and Notre Dame won. But, I mean, you just think about, don't limit him to just college football, which he had no equal.
Right.
Okay, there was no equal to him in college football. Brent Musburger might have been close, but still, Keith Jackson was on a different level.
Plane. Yeah.
But remember the other big things he called?
Many.
Mark Spitz winning all the gold medals over in Munich.
Right.
And then, of course, the awful thing that happened in those Olympic Games, Mark Spitz being Jewish.
Right.
Really had to, was really worried about his own safety over there. He also, Chris Chambliss hit that big home run in the baseball playoffs. That's when ABC got into baseball. They had a funny entrance into baseball. If you remember at first, they had the legendary Pirates announcer, Bob Prince.
That's right.
He was doing it. Then Keith Jackson came in, and he did it with Cosell.
Yes.
And they had that famous game at Yankee Stadium.
And Cosell, by the way, cut him off.
It's gone!
It's gone! Chris Chambliss! And it's like, wait a minute, are you, play-by-play announcers and color commentators, we'll get to that in a second because we both were watching yesterday's playoff games. But, I mean, Chris Chambliss is the only, his call, I mean, Keith Jackson got cut off by Howard Cosell, but it was still a great call.
It was. Then I believe he did the game where Reggie Jackson hit the 3 homers against the Dodgers. Yeah. The other thing that really...
The 84 Olympics, he called Michael Jordan and that great basketball team. Bobby Knight coached them in the 84 Olympics. Keith Jackson called those games.
The other thing that really, and I read this over the weekend upon hearing that he had passed away, that really bothered him was he, of course, was the first ABC Monday Night Football play-by-play guy, and the first game was here in Cleveland, the Jets against the Browns, and the Browns ended up winning the game. And he did it for the first year. And it's something that he never got over, that Roone Arledge took him off the assignment, and that he really only called him, I think, or he found out about it from other people, that he was off of it, and that Frank Gifford had moved in. And then they moved him to college football, which, of course, became his signature. But, man, I'll tell you what, that guy was just a phenomenal talent.
Yeah.
He had a real command.
He had and I thought, when you just mentioned ABC, when you think about ABC in their heyday, you had Keith Jackson calling college football and the various other sports. You had Jim McKay
as the host,
Wide World of Sports, the host for the Olympics. Howard Cosell, who everybody, you loved him, you hated him, but you couldn't ignore him. He was everywhere, as Ralph Houck would say. He was everywhere. You had Chris Schenkel.
Yeah.
You had
Frank Gifford.
Yeah. I mean,
you had a young Al Michaels.
Right.
You had a very young Jim Lampley.
Right.
Okay, Jim Lampley, they instituted ABC on their college football. They instituted the sideline reporter.
Right.
Where they went with 2, you're going to have to help me on this now, 2 young college students, okay? Oh, I got it. I don't need the help. I did need it on Ben Vereen. I don't need it on this.
You mean Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, right.
And Ben Vereen, who starred, of course, in Pippin.
That's right.
Okay. Anyway, the 2 initial sideline guys, and they were guys, okay, in college football, Jim Lampley
Yes.
and John Tesh.
Wow. Not Jack Harut or Dr. Jerry Punch.
No,
but
or
John,
Aaron Andrews.
Yes, John Tesh.
John Tesh.
Who would go on to host Entertainment Tonight and write one of the great sports themes of all time.
Right, John Tesh.
Entertainment.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That's right, yeah.
That's amazing.
Those were the first two guys.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, you're right. ABC had that was because they had the Olympics at that point in time, and they had a lot of other signature events. They had college football.
Right.
They had the NBA at one time. But a guy like Keith Jackson did everything. But boy, you put him with Frank Broyles.
Yeah.
Okay. You put him with the other. Bob Greasy. Had a lot of good years with him. Ara Parseghian.
Yep.
Once he retired, went into the booth with him. A really good play-by-play guy, always makes his analysts very good.
Yep.
You know what? Gives him a lot of room. Marv Albert was always known for making his partner, really shine. Mike Fratello would tell you that.
Exactly.
But Keith Jackson, boy, we've lost some great sportscasters this year.
Dick Enberg and now Keith Jackson. I mean, you couldn't, growing up in the 70s, the 80s, into the 90s, you could not have those guys in your life. The NFL, college football, and other sports. So that's one thing about Dick Enberg I love is that he could do tennis. He could do tennis.
Right, God.
He could do he loved baseball, but he could do tennis. He didn't care. He loved it.
The thing to remember, and this is something that I heard one time. I was listening. I was an avid listener to the Larry King Mutual radio show when I was growing up. When he was on midnight to 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, remember he was on midnight to 5 in the morning. And he had Roy Firestone come on one time. And Roy Firestone does one of the most incredible Keith Jackson imitations where he would say, "Whoa, Nelly, and what does this college football mean to me? It means about $600,000 a year." I mean, he had Roy Firestone did great impressions.
Because he does Howard Cosell.
Like dead on.
Spot on as well.
I know the guy, I know Frank Caliendo is phenomenal.
Right.
But Roy Firestone was pretty good, really good.
And finally, can I ask you, it's Martin Luther King Day today. You're of the age where, do you remember?
Yes.
Certain, like being able to hear his speeches, or at least,
yes.
I
remember the famous speech, in Washington, and I remember, unfortunately, that time in America where these assassinations, the Kennedys, which hit home very close to home for me, growing up in Massachusetts, and John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy being killed, and then Martin Luther King, being assassinated. It was a terrible, turbulent time at that point in time. And you look now, and so many people say, what that has all paid off in. But boy, what a price to pay to lose those people, and especially Martin Luther King during those, very, very important civil rights times.
And what made me think about it was, LeBron was asked about it today, and LeBron's not, he'll say what's on his mind now, certainly, and he'll poke a few shots at the president if he wants to, but he said, I just hope that I've made him proud. I've hoped that I've lived up to what he stood for, and I've tried to live my life. The values and the principles that he stood for.
I just remember, Dino, LeBron coming out, as a kid. I mean, remember, he was a kid coming into the NBA, and a lot of people wanted him to say things, but he wasn't ready at that point in his career or his life to do that. I mean, he was still trying to find his way. He was trying to find his way to the airport to find the Cavs charter every day to get to the game. I mean, he was really, he was just out of, St. Vincent St. Mary High School. But boy, he has really, you can hear him now, and he says so much.
Amazing.
And he really thinks about it. And he's out front.
Yes.
A lot of people used to take shots at him for, hey, it's time to speak out on issues. And when it was time, and when he felt it was his time, and when he felt that he had something to say and a good way to say it, then he did. And he is not to be stopped, but he is to be listened to.
Yeah, and the work he has done in this community, specifically at the LeBron James Family Foundation and the I Promise School and everything he does, you can't say, well, LeBron, you should be giving back more. I don't know of another athlete that's come from our area that has devoted as much energy to the right kinds of causes
Right.
away from their particular sport. And a lot, I mean, and we could go into a list, but LeBron just, what he has done with his foundation is pretty staggering.
Oh, it's amazing. And soon he will have individuals that have been in that foundation for a long period of time that will walk across the stage and receive a college diploma, all because of the LeBron James Family Foundation and the great work that they have done. Wow. I mean, you know what?
That's quite a legacy.
Yeah. I mean, they don't give championship rings for that, but I think it's going to be something that he's going to be very, very proud of. I know a couple of years ago when, right after the title, right after they won the championship, we had a chance to sit down with him, and I did the interview with him.
I remember that.
And he really got very emotional about that.
Yeah.
That people come up to him all the time and go, "You're great. What a great game. I'll never forget the game. You had that game." But when I mentioned that, I said, "Do you realize, there's going to be kids that come up to you, and they're going to shake your hand. They're not going to tell you I was there the night you had 52 points.
Right.
They're going to say I got this college degree because of you."
Yeah,
that really hit home.
I went, I got a degree. I'm now a doctor. I'm now an attorney. I'm now doing a whole bevy of things in life because you gave me a shot.
Do you remember when Oprah Winfrey was signing off her show?
Yeah.
And she had those 4 or 5 big shows to end, and she was at the United Center.
Yeah.
Okay. And they had Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah. One of our favorites.
One of our favorites,
yes.
Okay. And she sang the song from Wicked. What is it called? For Good? For the Good? For
Yes.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. And she sang that song, and all of those men that had gone to college through Oprah, who had paid their tuition, came walking out. The arena was darkened, and they were holding candles. It was an amazing moment. I mean, it was overwhelming how many guys had been able to, really further their careers and their lives and become better fathers and better people in their communities because of her paying a tuition. Really, that's what LeBron's doing.
Yeah.
It's an offshoot of that.
So if he sits and looks in front of the mirror and says, well, would Dr. King be proud of me? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, Cavs and Warriors will tip off at the top of the hour.
Can I make a final point?
Please
All
do.
Right. I want to make I know we have a lot of lot of people.
Your chess analogy will be very hard to stop by the top.
I hope so.
Yes.
I know a lot of you love the Steelers. Okay.
Yes.
I am not a fan of resting your players in the last week of the regular season, and I don't know if that had any bit of the outcome yesterday, if that's a reason that they lost the game yesterday, but do the math. Okay, they played that game against the Browns. They played with all their backups, and they had all those guys sit out. And remember, they didn't practice that week either because they weren't going to play, so they didn't practice. Then they were off again last week. Okay, then they come out yesterday, and the kickoff is at 1. They must have thought the kickoff was at 3 because they weren't ready to go, and because they were flat.
Right.
Now, in the same situation, the Patriots played that day too, and I know they wanted to wrap up the number 1 seed, and they played everybody. Right. And look at them the other night. I am not a fan of resting players. Now, I only hope that we have that decision to make around here at some point.
Yes.
But I really am not a fan of doing that. I have seen other teams, have that problem.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of resting players, and as we've talked about, I'm not a fan of going to Vero Beach, Florida to train when you've got to play in Cleveland that week. I'm not a fan of that either.
I was there, I was in Roy Campanella's room.
That's right.
Yeah, Dodger Town.
Wow. Oh, by the by, if you get a chance, if you haven't heard the Minnesota radio call of the game-winning touchdown from Keenum to Diggs, watch it. Let us know what you think. We'll discuss it Wednesday when we have our next show because we may do a show about how to call a winning play and how not to call a winning play.
Okay. Yeah.
Because from Jim Donovan, play-by-play 101. Yes.
It will be like going to the famous Newhouse School of Communications at Syracuse University.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
yes.
All right.
All right. Again, Cavs Warriors tonight at 8. Jimmy will have all the highlights for you on Channel 3 News at 11. For David Herberton, our man, taking good care of us as always, and for Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks, everybody, for watching the Donovan Live postgame show here on WKYC's Facebook Live.